Today we're using the low-profile baking mix, some tin apple, raspberries, sugar and margarine. Today we're going to make some pastry with the low-profile baking mix. You've probably used the baking mix for bread or muffins. It makes great pastry, and of course you can make pastry into sweet pies or savoury pies. Today we're going to do a sweet pie. Starting with some baking mix, and we're going to rub in some margarine. It's a little bit of an old-fashioned technique, but well worth it to get a great result. Just using your fingertips and pushing the margarine into the baking mix. It starts to break up the margarine and it looks a little bit like breadcrumbs. When that's worked through, add some water to form a dough. Mixing it through with a wooden spoon. At this stage you might like to use your hands just to work it all in so it comes together as a dough. I'll put that to one side for a short time while I get the fruit filling ready, which will be apple and raspberry today. Now we're going to work on the fruit filling for our pies. Just over a low heat, we're going to combine some tin apple, some raspberries. They can be frozen raspberries for your convenience if you wish, and a little bit of sugar just for sweetness. That's going to cook for about 4 or 5 minutes over low heat, just until the sugar dissolves and it becomes a little bit thicker with a little bit of syrup. And the flavours of course will blend, as will the colours, and we'll have a lovely bright fruit filling for our pies. You can choose your fruit. You might like to do apricot, rhubarb and apple, whatever you like that fits with your low protein diet. Feel free. You could add some cinnamon if you like that flavour as well. So be a little bit adventurous, and that's of course where you're going to get variety in your diet. Our fruit is ready. We're going to leave that aside just for a few minutes to cool, and I'm going to continue on with the pastry dough. This is ready to knead. It's a great consistency there. I'm using a pastry sheet. It protects the bench. It's easy to clean up, and it's a non-stick surface, so it's easy to lift the pastry from that. Using a little bit of baking mix, just so the dough doesn't stick, and turning the dough out onto our floured board. A little bit of a knead, but we don't want to work too much more baking mix in, otherwise it will become a little bit dry. Making sure there's a little bit of baking mix underneath to prevent sticking. We're now ready to roll it out. A little bit of baking mix on the rolling pin, again to prevent sticking. And just rolling this out to a thickness that you can manage once it's cut to pop into the tin that we're cooking the pie in. Of course you can do a large pie if you like, or several mini pies. And using a tin as a template to get the right size pastry, leaving a little bit of room around. We can always trim it off later if it's too big for the tin, but making sure we've got enough pastry to actually fit in the tin and down the sides. And just easing it into the tin, gently with your fingers to make it fit. The tins are sprayed with a non-stick spray just to make sure that when the pies are finished they come out of their tin easily. As I said, any excess around the top can be trimmed off. And just trimming off a little bit to tidy it up. And there's our pastry case ready to pop in the oven. We're going to blind bake that, which really means just drying out the pastry before we put a moist filling in there so the pastry base stays crisp. We're going to put that into the oven and bake it for about 5 minutes. Our pastry cases are ready to fill. They've been blind baked in the oven, so they're nice and dry, ready for the filling to go in. The filling looks great. It's a lovely bright colour. And just filling those pastry cases with that fruit, or your choice of fruit, whatever your preferences are that work for your low protein diet. And they could be baked with a pastry lid. What I have chosen to do today is just decorate with a little bit of the pastry to form a lattice effect. It's really up to you and how creative you want to be. It's how you like them to look. Just putting these pastry strips across. And I've got a couple of little pastry hearts that I've cut out just to place on top that make these ones look rather cute. I'm going to brush the top with a little bit of low protein milk, just the pastry that's gone on top. So they'll go in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. I'll keep my eye on them and make sure they're cooking well. The apple and raspberry pies are cooked for about 20 minutes. Then I think they'll be ready. We'll lift them out of the oven. There we go. Great homemade pies, great colour, smells delicious. I'm going to let them cool, dust them with some icing sugar and serve them up a little later. We've served up the pies. They look terrific. I'm just going to dust lightly with a little bit of icing sugar just to finish them off. There we go. All done, ready to enjoy.